Before going into this video, I have to give you a fair warning. It's not all niceness, but rather a dissection and my honest thoughts on the lore choices made for the game Paladins. This is not a lore theory. If you want a lore theory on Koga or the newer champions, you will be disappointed. But if you still want to continue, here's the video. Now I'll start this off a bit differently. Here are some dates and here's what happened during them. So March 13th, 2018, a short video is revealed with a cartoon Genos in a new location. March 14, we hear a new voice. March 15, this happened. March 16, the name of Khan is finally revealed to the whole world. Now during some time during this and the 21st of March, a Twitter account named Khan or @IcoPrimus was also created. Now March 19, Khan and his allegiance to the Ruby Throne was revealed. So you know, Leon's throne maybe? March 20th, we get a lore cinematic. March 21st, we see Khan's face. March 22nd, new map and champion, Khan, are both unveiled. The map will become available for the public the next week. Khan will however come in the next patch, which is OB69, which will be in April 16th. Fun little fact, Leon also has an official Twitter account @IcoScion, but it was never used, it was only ever tagged by Khan. May 21st, 2018, this image was revealed on Twitter. May 22nd, welcome to the village of Ceres, a quaint town harboring an ancient dark evil. Do you dare discover what lurks beyond the charming surface? And this was formed in another tweet. May 23rd, extreme measures must sometimes be taken to protect all citizens of the realm from potential threats. The magistrate thanks you for the understanding and the sacrifice. May 24th, May 25th, and May 29th, Furia is finally named in this tweet. May 31st, finally Furia is revealed and will be released to the public in just under a week. July 2nd, we see Zhin and someone new. July 3rd, another picture. July 5th, Koga is named. July 6th, July 9th, and finally July 12th. Koga finally announced and again will be released to the public in under a week. So do you notice an obvious trend going on here? And no, it's not a trick question, it's actually quite simple. A week or two before the patch, if a new champion is being released, some tidbits of lore are thrown in for the public. This is, to keep basically the hype factor up, if you don't follow data mining that is, which in case you don't know, I do not like. You can find a video on the top right explaining this. It's basically an effective tool, so for the past 3 champions, this certainly is the trend. This, however, isn't the first push at lore that we've had from Hi-Rez. The first serious push that we had was actually the launch of Bright Marsh, which was named the House of Pip's People, the Vulpine, and you've had some props thrown in there with some ambiguous painting. Nothing too interesting. When Bright Marsh came out, however, we were still following the old lore. For which you don't know, again, a video was linked now in the top right hand corner. But when the controversial OB64 patch was released, Hi-Rez released brand new lore. Some say that it was released to dampen the backlash of the release of Cards Unbound. And, from a damage control point of view, it does make sense. But that's a topic I don't want to get into. The fact is, old lore in Paladins had no place in the game. Or did it? Now, the most viewed video on my channel is the Androxus lore, which at the time of recording this sits at a comfortable 94,000 views. And, that's a lot. It was my first ever lore video and from there I made a bunch of lore videos. I did stop because I didn't want to be known as just the lore guy, or the guy who does the one type of thing really well. I'd rather be a guy who does a lot of things but not as well, so I shifted my focus onto other things. So when the new lore came out, OB64, my computer was in a bad spot, which means it couldn't render anything. I was running university work and ultimately I wasn't enjoying Paladins at the time. Now it's quite the opposite scenario, it's my summer holidays, I finish uni, and honestly a lore video at this point is quite overdue. But this isn't a lore on a specific champion or even a Paladins for that sense. As I've said before, this is a dissection of the choices made by Hi-Rez. And from what you will see in the course of the video, Hi-Rez has a lot of room to improve. Let's start with what might seem like a bombshell to some people. The lore released in OB64 is very generic. If you don't believe me, let's use Bomb King's lore as an example. During a fortress siege long ago, a clever warlord decided that the best way to breach her enemy's defenses was to create walking bombs. Her warlock accidentally brought one of the Bomb Kings to life and thus created Bomb King. After destroying her entire army himself, Bomb King struck out on his own delusional quest to visit all the lands under his rule. The common folk now know better than to offend or even stand very close to him, as his regal demeanor can instantly change to furious, explosive rage at any moment. So, from that little bit, can you tell me what exactly did we learn about him that connects him to the realm? Well, what we've learned basically is that he was created by a warlock who's working for a warlord, and he isn't a king of nowhere. He just thinks it is. But again, you could tell that by looking at Bomb King. You can tell that he was, made. He wasn't a natural creation. I even said a year ago with some other speculation here, because not only is nowhere to be seen, but he made Bomb King here as well. This may seem like a really random jump, but there are things which are just connecting. When Stonekeep was announced after HRX, the devs said something along the lines, it's not Bomb King's castle, but he thinks it is. So, considering that, he isn't an actual king of any realm, he was made here. Being made here, he may think that he is with all the monks and the students were his test subjects. Makes sense, sort of. Secondly, look at how Bomb King is made. It's literally just fixed parts. You can see all the bolts and screws. When he reloads, you can also see his mechanical hands, and again, he's just filled with mechanisms. Finally, if you equip the pumpkin skin, you can see that he has fire inside of him. The only new thing that we learned here is that there is a female warlord who is quite clever. And herein lies my first problem, of a few regrettably as well. Hi-Res are hand-holding the players for a part of the game that no one really hand-holds. Teaching the players mechanics through the game and various social media makes sense, and which I encourage as well. A player has to start somewhere, But when someone falls in love with the game and wants to feel connected to a character or general vibe itself, that's when the lore actually kicks in. It gives the champions meanings, and why are they fighting, who are they fighting, what's up with that scar on their face, and so on and so forth. You discover this through yourself as a community. Now, I'll be the first to admit that when I was younger and I wanted to do a thing, I would tell my parents about it, sort of in the sense that this is what I'm doing and I want to let you know. And they do try to actively give me recommendations which I would avoid. They could have the experience in a particular thing, and like good parents, they would tell me it. But like I said, when you're a certain age as a teenager, you don't want to listen to anything your parents say because obviously I know better. They do of course turn out to know better most of the time, but little me wasn't having any of it. The current lore sort of gives me the same vibes. Yes, the lore is ultimately up to the devs and the studio to make, and no one can argue with that, but similar to the young and foolish days, I would rather get the information myself by looking at the maps, the props, champions line, skin releases and whatnot. I don't really want it fed to me by winning a game and a random piece of text will unlock, but I can't be mad about that point now basically. Overwatch does the same thing. Even before the game was out to the public, you could head over to their webpage and read the stories of the individual characters. The difference is that it took Paladins 2 years to get this text out, rather than having it ready before the closed beta. So the lore being this basic is maddening at this point. So now we move to the second point. The current lore doesn't add up to the old lore. Let me give you an example of Androxus because, as I said, he was the first champion I made the lore theory for. Old lore. Never whisper the name Androxus, the champion who sat atop the skull throne of Umbria and the mortal who dared to slay the god Nyx, lest the divines curse you as they have him. Stories are told across Crosspoint of how a mortal might slay a god, but only Androxus knows what a punishment of such an act might bring. Now, this is the lore released in OB64. Once a noble lawman of the Outer Tribunal circuit judges, Androxus and his former partner were relentless in the pursuit of criminal and threats to the natural order. After a tragic confrontation with a deceitful goddess, though, he became afflicted with an otherworldly disease, dooming him with an endless hunger for souls. Now he wanders the realm adrift to feed that hunger, stripped of his rank and duties of the tribunal, and condemned to live with the curse for all time. What the actual hell? So Androxus went from this badass deity killer that people were actually even scared to utter his name, to getting afflicted by a disease dooming him to an endless hunger of souls from police work. In the new lore, he sounds like a cop that got jumped because he wasn't aware of surroundings, which I may add isn't a sign of a good cop. Now, I'm not saying the lore is inherently bad. The lore community always had the feeling that Androxus wasn't always a bad guy, but rather that he was cursed because he killed the god for whatever reason. So in that regard, the new lore, while very underwhelming, supports the old one. The thing that I have a problem with is the Lex part. this or being released before this, there was no evidence prior to OB64 that Lex and Androxus were even remotely related, apart from being flankers. Now here are some things to consider as well. Lex was released on March 22nd of 2017, while Androxus was released over a year before, in March 11, 2016, and OB64 and its lore essentially came out on the 29th of November 2017. So you're telling me now all of a sudden that Lex and Androxus were always partners. Now I wouldn't be overreacting to this if they had hinted this somewhere along the line. Skins, voice lines, map design, props, or any other things I've said above. And okay, so if we are to believe that they are actual partners or police for the tribunal or whatever. Now if I look into the voice lines and there's nothing anywhere. I look at the clothes they're wearing and again it's not consistent. The boots they're wearing are different, the material on the overcoat is different, and the theming is completely different as well. It just doesn't fit. Now, if I was to give Androxus a lore right now, which I'm typing up right now, or basically I'm reading the script, it would be something like this. Androxus is a normal guy and for whatever reason his family gets sick, let's say child and wife. For the cure, he needs to get this thing that can only be obtained from Nyx, the god that Androxus originally killed. So after a long journey to this god, he finds out that the god will only offer him the one other thing that Androxus needs. So basically, Androxus is heartbroken and pleads to the god that he can't choose between his child or his wife. The god then quite really reminds him that he can only have one, or let the useless lives be useful in the abyss, or some crap like that. And it would be at this point that Androxus completely loses it. In a moment of anger, he ends up killing the god, or he thinks he does, using the weapon that the god normally uses. So for the sake of clarity, let's just say his revolver. Now, before the god dies, she kind of latches onto Androxus like Venom in Spider-Man, and in doing so, Androxus completely loses control of his body. The god then proceeds to go to his house, kill the entire family along with the village as a reminder that you should never challenge a god. She still occupies Androxus' body to this day, tormenting Androxus forever challenging her. Or some shit like that. Now in this instance, his champion design makes sense, the accursed arm makes sense. We learn that Androxus is not really cursed but actually possessed by the god, and the gods are really pretty merciless when they get challenged, because a lot of gods are basically shown as demigods, which means they have human characteristics. Now I'm not saying mine is inherently better, that is up to you to decide. I can't say that because I sound quite vain. But the players that were like me in the early stage of Paladins doing lore theory, the new lore is a big slap to the face. Another fun little fact is that Lex's lore doesn't really go hand in hand with the Androxus lore. This is what Lex's lore reads. The Outer Tribunal is made up of merciless, oath-bound judges and none more dedicated than Lex. He and his partner Androxus traveled the fringes of the realm together, tracking down infamous criminals and battling all manners of horror on the behalf of the magistrate. After encountering a sinister goddess, though, Androxus abandoned his duties and quickly rose to the top of the most wanted list. Lex, unable to turn his back on the law or the magistrate, vowed to take down his former partner one day, dead or alive. Now here's the relevant part to the Androxus lore. After a tragic confrontation with a deceitful goddess, though, he became afflicted with an otherworldly disease, dooming him with an endless hunger for souls. And because I don't drag this point on any longer, let's just say the part that concerns Lex again. After encountering a sinister goddess, though, Androxus abandoned his duties and quickly rose to the top of the most wanted list. This is a problem, but it's a pretty small one at that. The lore presented in a way to us is in the text of a narrator, which is a decent choice. The problem here lies in the way it's presented. So from what I can tell, or what everyone can tell, an event occurred, so let's name it the Androxus incident, and it's being viewed as two ways. Androxus was deceived and cursed. This is made evident in his lore as it narrates the event as tragic. Lex's lore, on the other hand, makes it think like Lex thinks that Androxus abandoned his duties and is now on a random killing spree. Now, this doesn't exactly paint Lex in a good light. So, point number one, he somehow missed a massive curse out of Androxus, and which kind of, questions his ability and his sights and his competence, especially when he has an auto ability. Part 2. He never really trusted his partner, so if he strongly believes that Androxus has honestly turned on his duties. And number 3. The dude has a serious case of tunnel vision and I'm always right. So yeah, the narration should be changed to either the individual champion's perspective, where they're telling their story, or they should make it clear that Lex is an absolute joke or a police officer. Okay, that may be a bit mean, but you do get my point hopefully. Another thing that doesn't quite fit right with me is the lore cinematic, which is released on the 7th of January 2018. For those who don't remember it, pause this video and give that a quick look. It's less than 3 minutes, just barely. So if you pause the video and you're all caught up, welcome back. If not, well, there's nothing wrong with getting welcome back again. So the backstory here is also very meh. This is what it ultimately boils down to. There was a group in the beginning called the Paladins, which essentially made the world right because it was in chaos. Again, we don't know by who or why, just that it was in chaos. Then once they achieved this peace state, they were no longer needed, so they gave the powers to govern this new world to a new group called the Magistrates, which also had some of the original people from Paladins. This happened for quite some time, hundreds of years apparently. Then crystals were discovered by the common folk, but more importantly, a means to harness their power within it. The magistrate were then like, no peasant should have this power. The resistance are therefore born because their whole motto is, we don't like monopoly power and we will fight you for it. So yeah, magistrate versus paladins. Now let me just add, this is also a very generic, actually no, scratch that. This is possibly the most generic lore that they could have picked, considering the delay between the game's release and its lore released. It's a typical Group A versus Group B. Now, while I have no problem with the concept of conflict, if you think about it, every single lore in video games is basically made up of this group versus that group, or how different groups don't go along with each other. So my problem actually lies in the groups they've decided to go with, the Paladins versus the Magistrate. So just think about it from an outer perspective. This game called Paladins has a group again called Paladins inside it, which fight another group called the Magistrate over the use of crystals. It's not like you're playing a good guy or a bad guy. Now, I honestly don't want to bring this up, but as I'm going all out, I'm going to anyways. This story is a bit too close to the basic lore of Overwatch. So the way the Overwatch lore is shaped, it's basically Overwatch is a group made up of heroes that was disbanded because the Omnic Crisis was stopped, aka when robots tried to run over the world. Some stayed on in Overwatch, not officially, while others secretly joined Talon, the bad side. Now there is an impending doom again of another Omnic Crisis and Talon's BS is getting out of hand, and the world needs heroes again, yada 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 yada. It's not the whole lore, but you get the gist of it. And while I won't reveal or repeat the Paladins lore again, you really can see the similarities. So coming back to the actual point of the video itself, the conflict Hi-Rez picked isn't a good one, and neither that I had some time back, for a theory nonetheless, still involves two groups and it's somewhat similar premise to the Magistrate vs Paladins as to who can use the crystal. But instead of the current one, the crystals are actually a sacred thing, and either some gods or the crystals with the conscience themselves have chosen, guardians. This could be champs like Makoa, Inara or Maldumba. The crystals in their clothing, or weapons, made by the crystal gods I guess, are pristine and smooth, and they look like actual things that were bestowed upon you by the gods. Every other champion has obtained their crystals through mining and general mass producing it as ammo. That's why champions like Barik, Vivian, Leon, Lex, Kinessa have weapons with crystals that are jagged and chipped. The champions or the factions that mass produce crystals as ammo because they don't understand the full properties of it, only that it makes good ammo for weapons. The older players that had interest in the lore back then would have been satisfied with this as well. I certainly would have been. It again wouldn't have been a slap to the face to introduce a random group called the Magistrate. Now, in most other games, lore is presented in many ways. Maps, different areas, item descriptions, player interactions, or player interaction between lives and whatnot. Like I've said, the lore is optional, and it shouldn't be thrust upon the player just for the sake, hey, look at my lore. Some players will love the lore in games anyways, and some really couldn't care less as they just want to play the game. I know quite a few people from both categories. So, the voice lines of the old champions, which we thought had lore implications, more often than not, they don't. It's heartbreaking, but that's the reality of it. The maps, the old ones at least, don't have any props. They're just very generic, it's here, it's here, it's here. And they don't tell you anything about the story. I took a jab at it with Stone Keep, as that was a new map, but even then that was filled with some really vague details. So imagine my and everyone else's surprise when you see old maps updated with new lore. at this point, why even try? Now, one thing you'll come to understand from this video, and I certainly did when I was making this, is that Hi-Rez didn't plan their lore from the starting stages of the game, or its conception. Or, if they did, it really wasn't given any major importance. From everything I've mentioned so far, does it really look like Paladins through its lifetime has had a consistent backstory? To prove this point, once again I will use a tidbit of the new Skye lore. Noble by birth, Skye abandoned a life of luxury and wealth to pursue her dreams of excitement and adventure. During a time spent on the streets interacting with criminal underworlds of the realm, she discovered a natural talent for and boundless passion for killing. While her career as a contract assassin brought her fame and fortune, she caught the magistrate's attention and now serves as one of Grand Magister Khan's closest advisors. To her, War of the Realm is just a long-term contract that won't end until the last of the Paladins are dealt with. And this is the old one. Most assassins prefer to remain anonymous, but Skye thrives on fame and lives in the center of attention. Trained by the fabled monk of the Silver Moon, an outcast for violating each of the sacred vows in meticulous order, Skye enters the fight to much speculation. Whoever her next target, wives should be mindful of their husband, for it is said a single glance from Skye can destroy a man's heart. So, from what I can tell, monks of the Silver Moon are no longer a thing, and Skye isn't someone who broke the rules by killing someone or something. She is no longer the person that was trained by the fabled monks, and for some reason broke all of the sacred vows. Under the new law, she isn't an outcast, but rather a bored aristocrat that wasn't content with a life of riches, and just also happens to enjoy killing, which is quite cliche. So what I'm getting at is that there is no depth here, In the old lore, we knew enough about her but still had a lot of interesting questions unanswered. Why was she taken by the monks? Why are the monks fabled? Why did she break the vows? What were the vows? In the new lore, there really aren't any good questions. Sure, we know that she was a bored noble, but do I really care of what her nobility is? Especially when I know that the old Skye was a femme fatale. Her champion design portrayed her as this, as a seductive character, and her lore acknowledged her as a femme fatale. The whole purpose of this video can essentially be summed down by the axing of a single line, which in my opinion couldn't have captured any of the champions in a trait better. Past, present, and honestly I can say in the future too. Wives should be mindful of their husband, for it's said, a single glance from Skye can destroy a man's heart. So while I was writing the script, that was the last negative thing that I could think of, but now I'm actually recording it, another point came up, and it's to do with the last event, the Rise of Furia. Let's get one thing clear though. There are two otherworldly beings at play here, which are causing a lot of confusion even for me now, the Abyss and the Void. Now, I was led to believe that the Abyss was the name of this other place and the Void was another name to call it, but I don't even know anymore because it's a bit different. When the Furia lore cinematic released, the place itself is called the Void and the Abyss is the actual monster. Janos' lines certainly agree, but when you look at the voice lines of Ceres, the Void is not mentioned, only the Abyss is. It's all pretty mixed up. Now that I'm talking about this, even I'm not sure if it's the Void or the Abyss. Anyway, that's not the problem. The problem is that during the event, it was also revealed that there was a monster in the Abyss, or the Void, called the Abyssal Lord. And imagine my surprise when it's Drogos. Freaking Drogos. A dragon who fires rockets at you, who can't even fly properly because he's a lizard. Like, isn't it ever enough to release a character for you not to be a skin for an existing champion? Now granted, the skin look cool as hell, but do you really want to make a lore or the whole event based on a legendary skin for an existing champion? Like, think about it. You rule the Abyss and its ever-growing hunger and are generally terrifying, but you can literally get turned into a doggy treat by Moji or get stunned by Maldumba. It doesn't exactly inspire that threatening vibe to you. Now anyways, I realized this was a lot of bitching and bad parts about the lore, and it mostly boils down to me being invested in the old lore and finding the new lore doesn't even have the same complexity or was even the right one. The dev team, not to trash on them at all, are at least doing a good job keeping the new lore consistent. Ceres' lore that was released in OV64 100% matches the lore in the Furia cinematic. The town was destroyed and the girl named herself after the town. Ash, like I said in an older video, was a frontline experimental war machine. Drogos now has a story that actually makes sense that the old players don't feel cheated out of. Kinessa was in fact part of a regiment, but that she didn't like, though it was not the lawman like I thought she was in an older video. The lore now for some champions are actually decent, And the newer champions coming in not only reveal things about themselves but also the existing champions, like Kogo's essentially nurtured by Zhin, bringing out the daddy side of Zhin. Ceres and Furia were sisters that got separated in Tribal Fate. Khan is a loyal servant to Lian who just wasn't handed her powers. She proved her skills for the throne. I mean, sure, there are some problems with the lore, but like I've said, it's the first time heroes are actually designing the lore from the ground up. It's still a work in progress, and it won't be fleshed out for some time to come. Other good things about the lore is that the current cinematics now show us a lot more about the world of Crosswind. The towns, the symbols used, the lifestyle, and hell, even the trees. It's all evolving, and I do hope that we get to see some older concepts come back because they were generally amazing ideas. Now, I want to see more ways that lore is displayed rather than lazy posters that say join the magistrate or a flag that was designed in under an hour. As an example, I'm going to use Overwatch again. Before Doomfist was released, the map of Numbani was visually changed to emphasize there is a very real threat incoming. Things like that would be cool and not only shows that you care, but you also love the attention to detail and your fans. Now, while we haven't had a similar thing in Paladins, you know, older maps getting updated with new visuals, we did have the event The Siege of the Ascension Peak, which was the first ever for Paladins, and honestly, lore-wise, it was the best one. Sure, I still have problems with sure, it still has the same problems with heroes throwing lore into our faces with this new map, but all things considered, it was good. There were artillery that you were expected to dodge because, you know, it was a siege on the Ascension Peak. You were playing as Paladins characters versus the Magistrate characters, and it was set in a place where Khan and his armies marched to get Genos. That was great. The Rise of Fury event, while it had one of the best maps made, the actual event got ruined for me because I don't want Drogos to be the main guy, who, you know, gets obliterated in the end anyways. In the future, I would love to see ARG-esque games, puzzles, Easter eggs in maps, and all the fancy things like that too. The game does have potential, and I think hires are slowly realizing the importance of having an actual story in-game, but I also do know for a fact that hires is currently more invested in the important things like adding champions and maps, rather than a fully fleshed out story. But, you know, I digress. I would like to know your thoughts on the current lore of Paladins. You know, my thoughts and a lot of my subscribers come from making lore videos, so I want to hear your thoughts too. This is a long video, longer than my average ones for certain, but it's also been a long time coming. Maybe you see lore from me in the future, if the lore gets to that interesting levels, but as it currently stands, I'm not exactly feeling it. And, you know, because it's about to finish the video and I do want to get one final joke in the way, you can't trust the consistency for hires because even now they can't agree on Ceres' actual name as well.
Anna, I am sorry. Anna.
So yeah, thank you for watching, subscribe for more. It won't be lore videos, but there'll be something similar. And you know, you can follow me on Twitter at NinjaBoffin. Now this was recorded in one take for half an hour continuously, and today is one of the hottest days of the year, which is 33 degrees, so I'm going to drink a long glass of water.